every person who has ever spoken on the kalam, ever read the kalam, will obviously have come across this objection. The objection is, the kalam cosmological argument claims everything has a cause, but then you exclude God. And so they allege that we are pleading some sort of speciality for God. So the objection is, you claim that everything has a cause, but then you also claim that God does not have a cause. Why are you giving an exception to God? Ashar, take it away.
Yeah, that's, I think, the most common objection. Even if you type anything on the Kalam cosmological argument on YouTube, and you see the skeptics, the skeptic troll army in the comment section, they would generally, still repeat these or parrot these arguments that are defeated and no longer even utilized by atheist philosophers today. So,
Yes.
exactly, it's the argument is that, or the objection is that it's a special pleading that we're making in case of God, but it's because you've not really read the argument closely, right? The premise says everything that begins to exist has a cause, right? So, and the universe began to exist, and the conclusion therefore follows. So the key set of words is begin or began to exist. By definition, God did not begin to exist, right? When the central objection in Dawkins is the God delusion is who created God. But then you're actually setting up a straw man, because no one is talking about a created God. No one is defending a created God. So by definition, God is a transcendent being who is the uncaused first cause. And that is not a retreat that Christians made in the face of modern science. It goes back to Aquinas, and even before, right, to Aristotle. He is the first, the unmoved, the first cause, the uncaused cause. So right there, within the argument itself, this particular objection is rebutted, because God does not fall in that category of everything that began to exist. Number two, both the atheist philosophers, by philosophers I mean who are actual philosophers, not the folks who are commenting on YouTube,
Korah,
as well as the theists, both of them agree that if you acknowledge the metaphysical impossibility of an actual infinite, and we can get to that if we want to, there are good arguments to arrive at the absurdities that would follow out of actualizing an infinite. So if that is the case, then the infinite regress should terminate at some point. Wherever it terminates, that is the first cause. Call it God or not God, right? That is the first cause. So an atheist can claim, as some skeptics have done, for example, Graham Opie, could claim that those the first cause is a natural simple. That there is an option where you can actually do that, but then you'll have to do some sort of a conceptual analysis to arrive at, is that even possible? So I'll keep that for later. But in all, if you say that the first entity, whatever it is uncaused, is the first cause, that needs no theology, that needs no metaphysical presuppositions. It's just out of the argument against an actual infinite, or the metaphysical possibility of an actual infinite. Once you arrive at the first cause, then it's just a matter of analyzing that cause and arriving at whatever it is. So the fact that the first cause is uncaused is not even a matter of contention. It's there right in the word, the first cause. So I will actually leave it at that for now, unless you have more to add, Jacob.
Yeah, the key point where it falters is that it's just the fact that they don't stop to understand premise one. It just shows this, I don't know if it's willful ignorance or if it's just lazy thinking, that they don't put in the effort to understand what the argument is trying to say. And then, you're free to have objections, you're free to have disagreements with what the theistic side has to put in. But I think a deliberate effort has to be made to understand the objections in the best form. And I think, I can't recall the name of the philosopher, but he was doing sort of like a lecture series on philosophy and stuff, and he came across the Kalam, and he botched up the entire premise presentation of the Kalam. He actually mixed up both the Kalam cosmological argument and then Leibniz, German thinker, German mathematician Leibniz contingency argument, and made a complete mess out of it. But that is one very well-trained, highly academic philosopher I think he was doing a series with some sort of partnership with Oxford University or something of that sort, doing that. So it's unfortunate, but I think the effort has to be made both from the atheist side to understand theistic arguments better, and likewise from the theist to understand the atheist arguments, likewise all the more better. So here's another interesting one. Moving on, right? When in the last episode, when we talked about understanding the nature of the cause, we pointed out saying that, okay, if we understand what the universe is, space, time, matter, the forces of gravity, the forces of the natural forces, and so on and so forth. We said that if you understand this is what the effect is, what could be the nature of the cause? And we showed that the nature of the cause must be spaceless, timeless, materialless, as in immaterial, changeless, and so on and so forth. So one objection that comes up is that, oh, you have a lot of negative characteristics, less, spaceless, timeless, less. So you have a lot of negative characteristics. So the question is, what makes this cause indistinguishable, or what makes this cause separate from nothing? Because you have a lot of negative characteristics. What's your take on that, Asher?
Interesting. So I think I would rather simply put this, because this is one of those areas where a lot of philosophical discussions are still going on. But when you as we said a moment ago, when you're analyzing the cause, one of the key features of the cause has to be that it is transcending whatever it is causing, right? The effect cannot be the cause itself. So when you think of the universe is space-time matter. So whatever caused the universe has to be spaceless, timeless, matterless, or immaterial. Now, the confusion here is what most skeptics have again seen this objection on the internet, is that when you're talking about a spaceless entity, you're actually talking about an entity which is not existing anywhere. Or when you're talking about a timeless entity, you're talking about an entity which is existing for 0 seconds. If you've heard that before. So that's not what we mean by a timeless or a spaceless, and you can go on adding the whatever XYZ less entity. That's not what we mean by these set of attributes. What we actually mean is that by timeless, it's not an entity that exists for 0 seconds. It's an entity that transcends time, right? So here we are actually falling short of language as well. We cannot talk about a causal point that is sans creation, because there is no point, there is no space. So because this entity is transcending whatever we know as space. So a good way to think about it is that space, time, matter exists. That is what the universe is comprised of. But where is space, time, matter itself located? That's an interesting question to ponder upon, because there is something beyond space, time, matter, whatever it is. Okay, there is a lot of conversations happening here, and I'll not even step into those territories. But for those who are interested, I would highly recommend reading the Kalam cosmological argument and the teleological argument revisited by Andrew Locke. I think it's the 5th chapter where the name of the chapter itself is What the First Cause Is, and he goes into each of these attributes one by one: spaceless, timeless, and so on. So by the virtue of what we are defining, whatever that causes, even if one should argue that, okay, I don't believe in God, something else should have caused the universe, you still have to admit and acknowledge that as per the standard model of cosmology, quantum mechanics is a murky ground, but you take the standard model of cosmology as it is, matter, space, time began to exist. So if that is the case, then whatever is transcending that cause cannot be a material cause. We just spoke about an efficient versus a material cause. It has to be a cause which is not material, which is not bounded in space, which is not bounded with time, but had the capacity to initiate that process, to initiate a change. Again, one more attribute I think you already mentioned is changeless. So in both Locke's God and Ultimate Origins, as well as the one that I just mentioned, Andrew Locke gets into, he kind of adds a few extra corollaries to the Kalam cosmological argument in terms of the changelessness of God and how this entity can have the power to prevent change, should have the power to prevent change, as well as the power to cause change. So remember, we are not talking about an entity who is the first change. We're talking about an entity who is changeless and can cause the first change, the first event. So any argument in terms of that, the Big Bang caused the universe, the Big Bang is an event. It's a change.
Right.
So whatever
Right.
exists prior, for lack of a better word, prior to Big Bang or sans Big Bang, should be able to cause that change or cause that event, which would then, cause or give rise to the universe. So all in all, whatever we refer to as spaceless, timeless, matterless is basically spaceless, timeless, matterless, but that does not mean nothing. One final word there, when you talk about mathematical entities, let's say numbers, right? Again, it's a hotly contested issue where whether numbers do exist, but I am a mathematical realist, and I believe, Jacob, you are one too. So if you take a view that, and by the way, that particular view can be defended well. So these entities do exist, right? Mathematical entities, the number 7 exists, but is it in space? Is it in time? Is it material? No, it's a spaceless, matterless, and timeless entity. So mathematical entities would qualify for that. Plus, there are other arguments that are coming to my mind as well. Again, I would refer, if you are interested, do read J.P. Moreland's chapter regarding this in the Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview, where he discusses disembodied existence. So there's good evidence for, especially from near-death experiences, there's good evidence for entities that exist without a body or without a material reality. So when you have such evidence as well, on the other hand, we can quite say with a fair amount of certainty that an immaterial existence, which is, again, you can add the parameters of time and space, is quite possible.